that sound. Making that stuff to do with that sound.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Vernin G podcast. I'm your host. I have a very special guest here today, somebody that's been a spiritual leader for the last 19 years. He's been on this journey since the age of 12, and he's here to share a message of spirituality in the modern age. I'm excited to introduce you to Guru Strini. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. So let's delve into it. Share with us a bit about your upbringing and from your early years when you started to want to get on the spiritual path.
Well, from a very young age, I was already, you could say, drawn towards spirituality, maybe at some unconscious level. But I do have a family which is very rich has a lot of cultural and spiritual heritage on both ends of both my mother's side of the family and my father's side of the family. I think that for me actually gave me a bit more of that interest in the spiritual path, having observed, various prayers and, undertakings, their spiritual sadhana and practices and stuff like that. So it started from a very young age for myself.
Very interesting. So, what observations you had along the way when you were growing up, or sort of messages that made you think that you wanted to be on a similar path or on the spiritual path or wanting to know God?
Well, the actual spiritual quest, I would say, officially began at the age about of 12. There came a point in my journey, and as a youngster, I would draw pictures, of the different deities, of different gods and goddesses, and I would, grab whatever spiritual book I could, and read over simple lines and concepts and try and practice that in my own way, And then at the age of 12, a huge question mark occurred within me. And the question was, who am I? Where have I come from? And where are we going to? And this was a very deep-rooted question, not something that I just randomly thought up, but it's something that I would say came to me, rather, And of course, that made me search even more deeper. So that meant I tried to get my hands on even more spiritual books and also observing, the elders and what they are doing in terms of the spiritual practices and stuff like that. So whilst I was going through this whole process of trying to absorb as much as I could, I realized that one needs a guru in order to progress on the spiritual path. So that was when I made my prayer to the Divine God Almighty and said, please can you send me one? So that's where it began.
Wow, that's so many stuff to unpack there. So at the age of 12, all of the stuff is happening. And that certainly shows, because at the age of 12, people aren't asking these fundamental questions or these deep questions. And it's at the soul-searching level that you ask these questions. So for them, for wanting to know, would it be right to say you were curious as well?
Absolutely curious. If you can think of as a young child, like you mentioned, at that age, a child would not, have all of these kind of questions when it comes to, your actual life in general. You go by the moment, you go with the flow. It's a child's mind, But at that stage, the question that occurred wasn't something that I could just pass off, And I knew it's not something that I can just get an answer to. That there would need to be some sort of search. I knew that. I didn't know how to do it. That was what got to me. But as I said, when I realized that I need a spiritual master, a guru, a guide, and that's the only way that I'm going to reach that destination, that's when I had prayed to God.
Okay, we're going to talk guru and everything else coming up just now. But just want to go back to something that you mentioned, talking about your both sides of your family being of uplifted consciousness or on the spiritual path. How important is that how important was that for you? And is that necessary for anybody else who wants to like sort of get on that path?
Well, any added support is always welcome. I wouldn't say it is absolutely necessary, because you might not have families that might have walked that path, intensively. That's absolutely fine. As long as the seeking comes from within you, then you're good to go. But as an added support, as I said, yes, it did contribute quite, to a quite large degree, I would say, because having to observe the way the prayers were undertaken, the kind of faith and devotion that was expressed, and the love and the unity that it brought, I think that also assisted me moving ahead.
Okay, that's very nicely said. And just coming back to the point about you praying and asking for the guru, let's continue that story. So, at the age of 12, you prayed and wanted the guru to guide you along that path. So, firstly, what is meant by the term guru? Because I think this is sort of like a floating term, and people don't understand what it exactly is. We overcomplicate things sometimes. So, just share with us, what is a guru?
The term guru itself is being, as you said, used too loosely, and it's said to be a teacher. And at a certain level, yes, the guru may teach, but there is a more deeper meaning behind it. Because if you take the term guru, it refers to one who dispels ignorance. It would mean that this person or this individual is an evolved soul who's walked this path before and has now come to teach. So a guru is absolutely vital on your spiritual journey.
Okay, that kind of makes sense as well, because it's like almost an analogy. I think of it this way: it's like if you're gonna go for a hike, you want somebody who's been on the trail to guide you along, maybe,
100%.
because you're gonna get lost and meander and put yourself in more trouble and whatever. So, okay,
100%.
that's really interesting. So, at the age of 12, you asked for the guru to appear to you, and what's happened after? What's happened then at that point? What did you notice?
Well, I started to see that many things started to align itself, where I was coming into more spiritual knowledge that is being transferred to me, via various individuals, I would say, along the line. And the presence of the divine I found more and more in my life, and that's how my life started to gravitate more towards it. And there was a lot of work that I needed to undertake personally, and you need to understand both your limitations, and also those areas that you can, enhance and grow from. So all of that was, as I was going through that journey with each and every individual that I met, whether that be a Swami, a Guru, very, very important. And one of the key points, as well as my late grandfather, Mr. Bobby Govender, was a very, very faithful devotee of Silverman, Lord Shiva. And he was all about bhakti, devotion, So I kind of, I got a lot of early guidance from him, the early ages, and then thereafter my journey proceeded.
There's a couple of stuff you touched on there that I want to go back to. So you mentioned about three things: the presence of the divine more into your life, and then you spoke about you needing to make some changes or do some work rather, and then lastly about bhakti, devotion. So there's other levels, I believe, to it. So maybe starting with this again, like how did you start to feel the divine presence more into your life?
Well, for one, I started to realize that my prayers, however little or small they were, was getting some sort of a response to them. And of course, a child of that age, your prayers are surrounding, your current circumstances and stuff. But I started to see more response coming about, and that was very impactful for me. And I realized that, hey, he's actually listening, And I started going through that process where I looked at the spiritual texts, and I would take simple teachings, you know, like for instance, not to get angry. And what I would do is for the entire day, I would try and practice that one teaching. And if I didn't get it right that day, the next day I'm going to practice it again. But if for that next day I've got it right and I've managed to not get upset for the day, then I'll take on the next teaching. And this will continue day after day and just adding one more to it. So that way it was a kind of checklist, you know, to ensure that I'm transforming myself and shaping my consciousness. And of course, all of this was done at a young age, so it wasn't something that I thought or planned about. But thinking back in hindsight, I understand how it all came together.
Okay, so it wasn't some easy thing that just happened. You needed to work at it and actually try and.
Absolutely, it's never an easy task. I mean, spirituality takes a lot of work. It's very easy to look out at the world and find faults. Very difficult to look within yourself and find even one, or to even correct yourself. You know, so this is all part of the journey that we have to undertake, and the world is such that it is the greatest exam that we are writing, because it gives us all the tests that we require. You know, and we just need to be prepared for it, basically.
It's difficult for a reason. You learn a lesson from it, which helps your spiritual evolution over time and so forth. And that's something that I've been reading about. So I found it really interesting. Coming back to the work that you had to do on yourself. So the work you've done is like obviously an added effort that you needed to put into this transformation. So work on yourself. What sort of things you had to work on yourself during school, high school, all of those? And how did you manage to traverse that into, as being a youth, to wanting to pursue this path? Because you have people of similar ages that's involved in different things, and especially in school, how you navigated that, or just your growth, that part of it. So loaded question, just take your time with that.
Well, as much as as a youngster, you are exposed to many different types of people, circumstances, backgrounds. But for me, it wasn't a case where it was much of a struggle, I would say, in that sense, because these values were inculcated already from a very young age, you know, from my parents and from the elders in our families and stuff. So those were already there. I see the moral compass was already pointing in the right direction. You know, I didn't need much effort in that sense. But what I did notice and what I did was I kept away from company that I felt was going to be toxic. That's going to affect my spiritual path, and I became much more self-conscious, self-aware of my surroundings, and my interaction with it. So that's how I was able to navigate, per se.
Okay, that's really interesting. And then coming back to something you mentioned about your grandfather being a Shiva devotee and is practicing bhakti. So what is bhakti, and what sort of those layers painted in that's all on this like part of God realization, or knowing God and transforming yourself spiritually?
Bhakti is an amazing path, because it is where you can say that you dissolve yourself, your self identity, who you think you are, into that which is much bigger than you. It's when you come into a realization that there is more to life than what you think. And with deep acceptance and with love, you tread this path. And the more you walk on the path, the more nectar you receive. The more nectar you receive, the more you go back. So it is basically just that sugar that's dissolving in water. You know, it's a one drop of water emerging with the ocean. It's you emerging with that divine being and experiencing the bliss that comes from it. So bhakti is an absolute beautiful path, and it's a beautiful relationship that you have with God.
And is that the only type of form that there is?
Oh no, absolutely not. There's many different pathways that you can follow, and each person, there are many different pathways. As I mentioned, you know, you have like karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga. Kriya Yoga. There's different pathways one can follow. And if you look at the pathways itself, in one individual, these four may be mixed, but there may be one that will be more dominant than the others. Like, for instance, if you take someone that cannot sit still for much time, you wouldn't expect them to be sitting to meditate much. But there may be somebody who'd like to get out there and assist people and physically serve. So Karma Yoga is more dominant within them. So if you look at in the path of Karma Yoga, it is selfless service. Service without an intention to receive. So whenever we do something, anyone in this world, they always work the cost versus benefit. What am I going to get out from it? Should I invest in it? Right? But when you walk on the path of Karma Yoga, you do it selflessly. Whatever you do, you offer selflessly without taking the fruits of it and say that, it is I that have done it. You understand that you're the instrument in the work of God. And then you understand that when I am serving others, other life forms, I am actually serving God, because God is within everyone. So it is negating the I consciousness, the my consciousness through service. So that's, then you look at Jnana Yoga, for instance. Jnana Yoga is a path of wisdom, of knowledge. This is by deducing, you start to go through scriptural text, study it, contemplate upon it, and try and understand and get to the bottom of the concepts of it. Right? A mammoth task, difficult task indeed. But there are many who maybe are keen to that. They want to pursue that. They have a lot of questions and they want to find the answers. So that's the path you can also follow. And then you have Kriya Yoga as well, where you can practice certain sadhanas, breathing exercises, and meditations that can channel you into that path.
Okay, so those are the four layers. Really interesting. So seems like you need to be in union with all four actually to wanting to progress and get ahead.
Absolutely. So they're not independent. They do work together. However, as I said, one will be more dominant than the others. It's a mixture of these. One will be more dominant than the others.
And throughout this transformation that you've experienced, from the age of 12, then moving away, having all of these changes and finding your sort of space that you want to pursue and having these profound messages coming to you, what's the evolution been like coming along the way through there to get to where you are now? So did you have to drop certain stuff along the way, throughout your practice? Did it intensify? How did you know it intensified? And what consequences did that have? Are you sensitive to energy or people?
Well, a lot of things start to happen when you walk a spiritual path. One of the first things that happen is that you're broken down before you are built up. Because remember, the concept of the self initially is such that you think of yourself as such and such. If I ask you who you are, everything you're going to tell me about yourself is only related to a sum total of your experiences that you've had, right? So even your name does not belong to you. Somebody gave it to you. So if you ask someone, who are you? These are all the things that you tell me is everything that you've just experienced, and it's not actually you. It's attachments to who you think you are. It's multiple layers that you've put on. So when you go through the process, the spiritual process, the first thing that needs to happen is those false layers need to fall off. And you need to get to the core. Right? So when you get to the core, that's when your whole spiritual journey begins, the quest begins, because now all of those things that you thought you were, you realize is no longer you. Right? Those are part and parcel of your journey and experience, but they aren't you. Definitely not. So going through that process, one of the first things was that identity falling off. And then going through a deep transformation, an internal transformation, where you start to experience or come into experiences of things which are far beyond the logical mind, far beyond, things that you can just comprehend just off the top. And these are deep-rooted experiences that one will go through when they go on a spiritual journey.
You mentioned a lot of gems there as well, talking about like dissolving yourself and like, letting go, forgetting about these are just like achievements or accomplishments that you say is you, but not really you. And so also by dissolving that, it's like almost you're losing control in some sense. So
Isn't it a fear of anyone? I mean, fear of the unknown. The fear of death. I mean, people fear death because they fear losing their identity. Is it not? Right? But when you put your head down on your pillow and you fall asleep, you fall asleep, right? You let go. Let go. And it is said that sleep is a temporary death, and awaking is like birth. Right? So just like that, letting go and trusting, it is an absolutely huge task, and that's where the spiritual leader and the guide comes in. The guru comes in at the right time, when the soul, you would say, is spiritually mature and receptive to grace. Because there will come a time when the soul will realize that everything that it's been doing thus far, it has not found any true happiness and peace in. Because everything, if you look at man, is always seeking to find peace. He's looking for it in so many different avenues, whether it be in career, like you mentioned, whether it be in relationships, whatever aspect of life he's pursuing, his only thing he's trying to do is grab and hold on to some happiness and peace. Right? But he keeps eluding. Because every time you get there, it's a mirage. You realize, no, it's not, this is not it. And then you find the next mirage up there, and you get there and you realize, oh, this is not it still, So this continuous rat race that one is in, we need to wake up and realize that there's more to life than what we think.
So coming back to this year, this rat chase that you speak about. Okay, so before the rat chase, happiness. At that point in time, like prior to this, you getting on this deep spiritual journey, stuff that brought you happiness before that, right? Because obviously you're quite young at that point. Now, not just at the age of 12, but maturing much more. Different stuff would have brought you happiness. What was that shift and why did that happen? What sort of stuff brought you happiness? How did you feel when you reached that little bit more evolved state and you were much earlier and younger? How did that shift happen?
Well, a lot of it is more to do with the fact that when you're on a spiritual path, the unfolding is miraculous. It is the great divine design of God, how He molds you. And these things that start taking shape without you even consciously realizing it. In hindsight, I can say, yes, these are the things that happened. But going through the process, I myself didn't know where it was going to take me.
Because you didn't have an expectation, it just happened.
100% complete trust in God and His will and His way. So it wasn't a case of me having to choose, and even likes and dislikes. It came to a point where when you realize that what you've received now is so much more valuable than anything else that you've ever found. There's no question of you ever wanting to pursue anything else, per se, if that makes sense. You understand where its place is. You understand that it's not something that you need to go out into the world and try and find something else. You've already found the truth.
Very nicely said. And you mentioned so much of gems there as well that I just can't unpack, and I want to hopefully ask that you can do this. That point that you found the stuff that brought you happiness and joy and bliss. Now, can you give us a concrete example in your personal life of a time when the Guru was guiding you? Now, you can pick the example and share the level of depth that you want to, but like maybe it was a situation you should have been removed from. Maybe it was like guiding you to not be at a certain place for your safety or something. Maybe it was a message that you need to tell somebody or to do something. Have you received type of stuff? How did it happen? or how profound were something that people will think is an abstract thought or dream that they had, something that happened that's but really unfolded in their life in the exact same way. Did you have some of those experiences? If you do, can you share something with us?
Well, many of those experiences, but I think most are best left to experience, to be honest. Because when you walk on a spiritual path, you will realize that how the divine is guiding you, and it will make sense to you then. Because if I try and describe something which is not within your experience as yet, it might not make sense at all at this stage. But once you get there, once you're there on that path, and you see those signposts, then it's a different story. But I think the most important thing is transformation, self-transformation. That is the greatest, merit you can have. The experiences that you can have are countless. There are many, many beautiful experiences that you can have. But like everything else, we should not hanker on to that. We are here for the end goal, is to reach that divine. So that's where the focus should be.
Thank you for that. So I can really see this level of authenticity with you, and it's very genuine because you're not trying to prescribe a specific thing here. You just are interested in talking about this in general topic for people's transformation. Because a lot of people will prescribe things, and you're saying no, it depends on your state and your awareness and your evolution, because you'll experience it and you'll know. So I like that. Thank you for being honest, and I can feel that with you.
Absolutely. There's no such thing as a blanket approach in spirituality. Each individual soul is unique in its own way, and brings to this world the beauty of the divine, its expression. So we can't put it into a category and say, do this and it's going to work. No. There are certain things that will be prescribed accordingly by the Guru, who will understand you and know what kind of work is needed for you. You go to the doctor. The doctors ask you, what's your symptoms? You tell the symptoms, the doctor then writes down a prescription, depending on that. So like that, the spiritual master will be able to identify what are those things that need work on you, and they will prescribe accordingly.
I love that. I love that answer. Really nicely said. So, I'm a teenager, let's say, and I'm starting to listen to this podcast, hear your message and what it's about, wanting to sort of try it out, or like starting to try and make an effort to experience God, right? Walk on the spiritual path. Now, how has that path changed over the years? Because now, probably for somebody wanting to get on that path, it may have changed or been different to what it was many years. So what I'm getting at is the evolving landscape of spirituality. Mm-hmm. So take us a bit through a journey, like what it was, where you think it is, mm-hmm. where it's going to. Mm-hmm.
I think 20 years ago, teenagers back then weren't exposed to much technology. They haven't been bombarded like they are today. I mean, everywhere you go, everything, there's a screen that's in your face, right? There's something coming at you. And at that stage, because you have fewer distractions, the general human issues that one has to transverse, is there. But in general, you had a limited kind of influx of information. Today, the whole world opens up to you, right in your own home. Right? And if you look at the sensors are always drawing in. And we talk about consuming, not just about consuming food, because your dietary is one aspect of it, but consuming also through your eyes, through your ears, through your entire body. So because you're constantly absorbing all this information, and sometimes it's things which are not even necessary to you, does not mean anything to you, it's not going to do anything for your life. Who bought what in whichever country? How is that going to impact you in any way? Absolutely not. Right? But you can tell your friend, hey, that you probably know about this first. So and so did something. That's about it. What else have they done for you? Nothing else. All it's done is just overloaded you. So we take in all of these things, and also everything in limit. I mean, you look at the youth today. We have, series that they watch. Which, I mean, people binge watch, they're sitting for a whole season or 2 seasons, right? So a lot of time, it's a lot of time invested in watching a story, which isn't real, but because, it gives us some sense of letting go. We can for a little while live in someone else's world without the risk of getting hurt. So everything in moderation. It's not about letting go and not enjoying your life, but within limit. Everything within limit. So the youth of today are exposed to so much more that we were, and yet at the same time there are many different spiritual apps, and there's a lot of content online about spirituality. The only danger with that is that without the proper guidance, it's not so easy to follow the processes, because certain things done incorrectly could have repercussions, like anything for that matter. We don't read the instruction manual correctly, something's going to happen to your appliance. So to ensure that we have a deep understanding, the spiritual yearning is very, very important. As a teenager right now, I think yearning for spirituality, yearning to know more, is the most important thing. The deeper the yearning, the greater the experience, and the further the search will go.
Okay, and I assume the way it's being said, and from your understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this transcends everything from religion. It's not limited to religion or that type of thing. It's anybody who's wanting to get onto this path of just knowing God through whichever means it may be can still achieve that.
Correct. I mean, spirituality, if you look at religion itself, it guides you. It guides you to walk on a path. Right? And they all have the end goal, which is realizing yourself, realizing God. Right? So depending on your preference, you will gravitate towards that aspect of it. There is only one truth, and that truth is always the same, is permanent. If it changes, it cannot be truth. So we say truth, God is truth, right? Because God cannot change. So this is exactly it.
Very nicely said. And so coming back to this then, now that teenager on the path wants to find God and get on the spiritual journey, like that has changed over the years. I think the type of way in which spirituality is practiced, like now you mentioned technology and stuff, it has its good parts of it, and I believe also the bad parts of it, or rather the bad and the good, because there's always something good that can come off it, which would still, a man on the phone could still make them want to meditate, as opposed to like not doing it. Correct. Or even like pray for 10 hours a day, 10 minutes a day, something. If you do 10 hours, good luck to you. But eventually we get to the point of all the time. But so coming back to this then, like previously people usually associated with getting spiritual or heightened states of consciousness, and we'll talk about all these things just now. But like to get on the evolved path, like you got to be isolated, you've got to be in a different part, you've got to sit in a cave and be alone, don't be in society. Now this, I may be ignorant, but I think that has changed. I think we're in a different age now. Unpack that how you feel, and you can go into the different stages if you want to, whatever level of detail, but something to help our audience understand that.
Well, one of the first things that you need to do, and not necessarily sitting in a cave, but spend some time a little bit with yourself alone. You have to spend a little bit of time away, and that is why the meditation is prescribed. You should detach from the outer world, shut down the outer world, draw the senses within, and start to delve within yourself, right? So when you need to, if you look at life now, as you said, it's changed so much that we need to now accommodate our spiritual practices according to the times. And it can be 10 minutes. 10 minutes, investing 10 minutes in yourself. I mean, if you look at anyone for that matter, if you tell them just to sit and do nothing, it's impossible. It's an impossible task for many, because you got to be listening to music, you got to be watching something, you got to be talking to someone, you got to be doing something external. But yet there's so much that's going on within ourselves. And if we actually turn our attention within ourselves and look at the internal drama that is going on, And as we look more and more at it, and you'll find that those thoughts start to thin out and they become less and less and they start receding. And you'll find that a lot of thoughts that we have are repetitive. Same thoughts, just different days. Right? Keep coming back and back again. But you need to spend that time alone. Spend a little bit of time alone. It's very, very important. And your interaction with the world, instead of unnecessary speaking, speak with purpose. Instead of acting just for the sake of it, act with purpose. We do things randomly, unconsciously. But we can do the same things at a conscious level, and we can find how it will impact us at such a deep, transformative state. So these are things that you can do with yourself. You got the entire mechanism right here. You don't have to go anywhere to get it. Right? The only thing is that you need to know how to turn inward. This is where the yearning, the greater your yearning, the divine will find is reaching.
So that's what you spoke about, like always practicing, because like today you sit and you may try to do that and go inward, it may not work, doesn't mean you give up tomorrow, you try again, and eventually it's like same like studying for an exam maybe, like you just learn. If you think you didn't absorb it today, you got to do it tomorrow. You do it again and again until you feel comfortable that you're able to face that exam or whatever that may be.
Yeah, getting out from body comfort. Because one of the things is nobody wants to come out from their comfort zone. It's a nice comfy place to be. So if you are going to do something which you don't like, generally we don't like to do it, right? So we don't want to do it much. But initially, at the initial stages, you have to persevere. You have to push your limits. You have to go past that threshold in order for you to break free. So that means, if that means getting up earlier than usual, you have to do that. If it means you spending and dedicating 10 minutes or 15 minutes of your day towards some spiritual sadhana or practice, do that. If it means you setting aside a day to go to a satsang, joining in to a prayer group, a service, joining others, listening to spiritual messages, do it. Pick up a book on spirituality, look at it, and pray, pray, pray. The more you pray, you'll find how your life will start to gravitate towards, and the answers will come to you.
Okay, I was going to ask you what are things that people can do daily to sort of help them on this path, but you've answered the question yourself. So that's precisely, that's some of the stuff that people can do on a daily basis to bring them towards that message, the higher truth, and evolving themselves every day. Just keep in that same mind frame. Okay, no, that's fantastic. Define the word sadhana, what that means, and what are different types of sadhana that people do, that they can do to help them with this evolution or transformation. Like, I mean, it's not fixed, it's a term, however you interpret it, that could help you with your evolution, but there are prescribed methods, as you said, that you could use to get yourself heightened state of consciousness. So what is sadhana? What's the types of sadhana that people do that could help them evolve on this path and to get closer to God?
So sadhana is just spiritual practices. Okay. This is very, very personal. Very, very personal. It is something that you will do really religiously. Like when you get up in the morning, you have a bath, you do all of your necessary things, you have your breakfast and whatever, your routine of your day. It's part of your day. So that means that every day you practice it. And the sadhana may come in various forms, in various ways. There may be certain breathing techniques that will be taught to you, certain meditative processes that you can go through. But these, again, as I say, with caution, because online there's lots of stuff out there, right? They may not necessarily be for you specifically. So that again comes with the need of finding a spiritual guru, guide on this journey. Absolutely vital to have someone who's walked the path before guide you on this journey.
You've certainly helped a lot of people along the way on the journey through whatever means that may be. And I believe that's unselfishly helping and guiding people. And you've done that just for their own growth and evolution. So what would you say your message is? What do you think you are here to do? What is the purpose of this podcast? Why are you saying the stuff that you're saying?
I think, in general, when I look around at life, and you see that people are going through suffering which is self inflicted, it's sad. A lot of the things that trouble us from day to day is of our own making. The worst part is we amplify it. And this can be in any aspect. Look at anything, in life. It seems as though that the only way we know how to live life is if there's a tinge of drama in it. There has to be some pain, some suffering, some loss. But yet, all of these processes can be actually transformative processes that we can go through. And for me, that's the biggest take home. That's what I'm working towards. Helping people live the best version of themselves. Understanding that spirituality does not mean, like you said, isolating yourself in a cave, renouncing the world, starving yourself, or doing any sort of extremity. They say the high road is no good, the low road also not for us. The middle road is the best. Too much of something, no good. Too little of it, no good as well. Just enough. And finding that balance in your life, that one can actually achieve this. I think we struggle with the concept of trusting and surrendering to God because we feel that we have this big picture of how life should be. And if you really think about it, the divine himself has created all of this before us. His intelligence, the supreme intelligence, has given us all of this. But here we are, we don't want to trust him with our plan. We want to give him and tell him what to do. So this is where we fault. And it's not true surrender. It's one of the reasons when you go into a shrine, a temple, or so forth, the first thing that you will do, you will find is that you bow. You prostrate, you bow, and bringing your forehead to the ground. And this is understanding that I surrender myself, the self-identity to you. Because when you walk up, we're very proud about ourselves, right? So when you go down to the ground, we place this head, where it's supposed to be all this intelligence, down to the feet of God. We surrender ourselves and realize there is that which is greater than us. We surrender to that truth.
I actually didn't think of it like that. So you sometimes do these unconscious things, but you don't realize why or what's the significance of it. But now you're saying that it makes so much of sense as well. I think that certainly does help. And I mean, running away from God's plan and trying to create your own, that's something I'm a victim of that as well. You learn along the way that it's meant to be how it's supposed to, and unnecessary worrying doesn't really help.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we're always going to find something to be bothered about, because that's the nature of the mind. It can only absorb, but it only holds one thing at a time. See, so it has to have something to chew on. When you're watching TV, something always going to be going into your mouth. Keeps you busy, like you're doing something, like you're productive, but all you're doing is just absorbing, right? So in the same way, your mind is constantly just taking in as much as it can, because all it wants to do is keep itself alive. This identity. If I say to you, your mind is not you, it's a huge statement. But you are not your mind. The mind is just a facility that you use, right? But we've got it all mixed up. Now the mind runs us. It tells us one thing in the morning, and at the end of the day, we've got a completely different perception of it, which means your mind is ever changing. Yet we trust it, right? So even if you look at an individual as well, you might have known them 10 years ago, but today they may be a completely different person. And 10 years later, they may be somebody completely different as well. What they liked, what you liked yesterday, you don't like anymore today. I'm just saying, could change, right? So if it's changing, it's not the truth. Truth never changes. So we need to go beyond that.
Yeah, from what I gather as well, too, it's like then as you are on this ladder of the spirituality and this growth of like starting going from 0 to 100 of starting to know God, and actually at that stage, your you'll probably put it in the terms of like your checklist for happiness changes as well, and
Hugely.
and that like seva is a huge part of it as well, which we'll touch on just now. But that's like the gift that you get something in return, in some sense. So just unpack that. What is seva, this gift that you give out that you get something in return, and how does it work?
Well, seva itself, as I said, it's selfless service, and you're understanding that just worshipping God in a place of worship is not enough. It's not complete worship. We need to understand that the divine is all around, in everyone, all the time. I refer to him as Silver One, right? You may have a different name for him. There's one truth. But that divine is within each and every one of us in every single thing that we see and know, right? And when we serve another, we are serving God, because God dwells within them. So if another is in pain and suffering, we must understand that it's part and parcel of us as well, because the divine resides within them as well. So we must also assist whatever you can do. It doesn't mean that seva doesn't only mean that you have to give out food, or you have to have some sort of tangible item to give to someone. It could mean a simple smile at somebody. It could mean a simple word of encouragement to somebody. Just starting someone off on the right note on the day. You've done seva.
So these are really practical things. That it's not something overcomplicated that you need to know.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You don't need to do anything. I mean, it's always good to be more involved. But whatever you have, whatever God has given you, use that to serve.
So that's partly your message of why you're here as well, to give that, share that message, to want to help people and do that. That's not just your seva, but it's like you want to see the growth of other people. As you have grown to become to the state that you are, you want to share and impart that onto other people as well.
Correct. Absolutely. And that's it. And it comes to a point where the joy and the bliss that you experience within yourself, you cannot contain it anymore. And it's going to spill over. So share it willingly. Give to others, And we understand that you never know everything. And that's okay, because only the Supreme knows everything. We cannot know God. We can experience God through God's will, through God's grace. That is a completely different concept. We can read many, many books about Him. We can study as much as we want. We can do all the sadhana we want. But without God's arul or grace, all of that will be meaningless. We will never experience the divine. So we have to surrender. And if you look at the relationship of, or the concept of God, the divine, you look at it and you understand that people always think that it's a means to get something. I pray to God to get, a new job, a promotion, get married, or have children, or whatever it may be, or go to heaven. You pray to God because you want something out of it, but not for the sake of praying to God. Because God is all of that and more. God is the end, the final destination, not all of the other things that you want with it. I mean, all of the things that you want with it, temporarily, it assists us on our journey. That's fine, that's okay. But again, not too much of something. Always within limits. It's the best.
Okay, so we spoke and we covered these aspects of the spirituality. Somebody wanted to get on the path and what they could do. You spoke about the things that they could do to help enhance that experience or to get them closer to it and evolve over time. You spoke about like just starting over, doing everything from scratch. Whether you grasp it or not today, try again tomorrow. It's effort that you need to put in. It's not just some magical thing with a click of a finger that you can experience and wake up differently tomorrow. And then let's say now you get towards that point at that stage, you start to feel your perception changes, your thought process is different, and the type of things that bring you joy, bliss, and happiness and purpose is different. how can you take that, right? Because we spoke about it not being like a cave and stuff. It's a new age now. There's a different way of doing things. How do you take all of that, let's say whatever you get through this process, teachings and experiencing God, practicing it throughout the day? So, like for example, you're going to work, or you're in throughout every part of your day. How do you take all of that and use it into actual outward into your daily life? How does it? Is it in isolation? Is it part of the same process? And what's some of the stuff that you could do?
It's not in isolation. So, spirituality is not something that you practice just on a certain day or at a certain time. Spirituality is your very life itself, your life process itself. So, when you do practice your sadhana at a specific time, what happens is you generate a certain amount of pranic energy, divine energy, which acts like a buffer to you for the world. And then your experience of the world is different because now you understand it so much more better. And you don't just react, but you respond accordingly. So you understand the nature. You're able to navigate much more easily life in general. Human connections change in a huge way. And you become so much more less judgmental. And you understand that everybody is on a path, everyone's seeking the same thing. But some people have got it, some people haven't as yet. But everyone's eligible for it.
I have some questions for you, and you can take it how you want to or blitz through it as you feel fit. But you mentioned prana now. So what is prana?
Pranic energy is a very, very powerful energy force that is generated when you practice certain sadhana. Right? And the idea here is that these come with, of course, as I mentioned, there are different pathways, but each pathway has its own way or experience or outcomes, depending on the path that you're following. But with the prana itself and getting mastery over that, that comes with the yogic practices, the certain practices like that, which one is able to then regulate the body at a completely different level, psychologically, emotionally, physically, spiritually, energy-wise, completely different. You rewire, everything gets rewired down to your DNA. Your entire life gets rewired on a completely different state. So if you look at even your being, for instance, I mean, everything that you see and know, we all know is vibrating, right? Everything for that matter. But the rate at which it vibrates doesn't seem like it's moving. It's still the same. We understand the concepts of the atoms and so forth, what science has taught us thus far. But these are things that our sages and saints knew thousands of years ago. They've spoken about it without having a microscope. But they were able to understand the concepts which was far more deeper, beyond the instruments of the five senses, right? So deep wisdom. So the whole process, the yogic process, is ascension of the Kundalini Shakti from the base of the spine to the crown of the head through various chakras or energy centers. And energy centers, each energy center has a different role and a responsibility in different aspects of your life, right? So all of these will have its own influence depending as you gravitate and the process of the energy moves through to reach the Sahasrara chakra, which once at that stage one reaches God realization. So there are different things. So this pranic energy, if you walk into a shrine, a temple, or a place of worship, there's a certain ambience and a certain experience. The atmosphere changes, and you automatically feel that there's something different here. You can feel it when you walk into, and that is because the pranic energy is such that, even when you consecrate murtis, for instance, the murtis that are consecrated reverberate a certain energy, and that interacts with you. So you start to experience the shift and change, and your body, your mind, and your entire being starts to, get a synchronization with that. So it's powerful energy centers, and this is the energy that we talk about. Is what we are trying to gather and assist us in our spiritual growth.
I can certainly attest to a lot of the stuff that you said, and especially talking about the place in which I pray at home. If that if if I'm busy cleaning and everything's removed from there, you feel it differently, like something's missing.
Okay.
And the moment it's set up like the way it should, you feel that same energy. You feel that shift, or you feel uplifted, and it raises that for you. So I just have about another 3 million questions. So you mentioned, you spoke about these energy centers or these chakras that you spoke about, raising Kundalini. So those chakras, what impact does that have in our daily lives, and what do they carry?
These energy centers are within our body, and there are 7 main ones that we talk about, starting from the base of the spine. So Muladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura, Anahata, Visuddhi, Agni, and Sahasrara Chakra, which is just above the crown of your head. So each of these chakras has their own specific role. Like you can look at the Manipura chakra, that's in the region of the navel, in charge of the digestive processes. Right? And then if you look at your Anahata chakra, the heart, this is your emotional side, your relationships, your feelings, all of those things come in there. So if there's blockages going to happen there, you'll find there's a lot of troubles when it comes to your interaction and human connections, your relationships in general. So each aspect has its own power. So there are energy centers which actually absorb the energy, right? And in the centers, they are, let's just say, brought into a state where it's more conducive to the body because it moves through the different channels within your body. If the full voltage was given, you might have a blowout. So it basically comes in, is brought to a manageable level and moves throughout the entire body. It has an impact. So by going through your sadhana, your spiritual processes, you awaken these centers and keep them active. They are open, but at the same time, the limit and to the extent at which it is actually functioning may differ, depending on your state of consciousness. So for basic survival, they are there. They still function. But if you look at the intensity and a spiritual journey, then it requires a bit of work.
Wow, that's a lot of information to take in there, and certainly I'm sure, like what you mentioned, is practical takeaways of how these impact your daily lives, which is exactly what I asked. So if there's certain stuff that's happening in people's lives, there may be a reason why, and they could attest to certain parts of what you mentioned, and they could easily read up about more in detail about these chakras and so forth as well. I think you've managed to explain things, complex ideas. These are not easy things to explain. You managed to explain it very simply and in practical terms that people can digest and understand. So what message would you give somebody now in this new age of seeking spirituality, as it's grown from where it was to where it is now? What defines spirituality, irrespective of the culture, irrespective of your religion, your caste, and so forth, gender and everything else aside? It's just at the soul level. What advice would you give to that person in this modern age, trying to traverse all of these distractions, to grow, to know God, to just keep going? Over to you.
I think first and foremost is find a conducive environment, that being a spiritual or religious institution, because that protects you at a huge degree. It's your recharge center. Seek the company of those that have walked the path longer, because they have a lot to share with you. You already know what is good and what is bad for you. Nobody needs to tell you. The only thing is we need to take a look at it deeply and start to correct it within ourselves. Making that change. All the small steps that you take will have a huge impact at a later stage. But it all comes together. The job is not to worry about how it's going to come together. It's about doing the work that's required. Right? Because everything that you've invested in thus far has only brought you momentary happiness. So why not invest in yourself, which is the greatest of all gifts that God has given you? Invest in yourself to find the real truth. This is what I would say to them. Spend as much time as you can seeking.
Well, thank you very much for these profound messages. And there you have it. Guru Strini governed, everybody. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, it's been a pleasure.
Bye, everybody.
Hearing that sound.